Since a certain YouTuber has his head up his ass and wants to talk out of it also, I thought I would do a blind react to his Upper Echelon's garbage take on AC Shadow's breakdown response. So let's see how this common sense giant is at breaking down Upper Echelon. I mean, Upper Echelon's only been doing this for, a couple of years and sort of pivoted out. Why this Dezembro guy starting with a video about the truth behind the media attacks on Black Myth Wukong. I'm sure that's so accurate and not full of misinformation. Gonna make anyone viewing this video suffer through whatever time I tack on to the hour and 18-minute video he did on Upper Echelon's Assassin's Creed Shadow video.
Well, boys, here we go again. I guess it was too much to ask that fighting Cowboy would be the last disingenuous take that we would see trying to defend Shadows and paint its critics as bad people who are deluded in some way or another, but here we are. This time with an exclusive take, hot off the press from Upper Echelon. If he was just reviewing this game or just defending the game, I wouldn't care. Like, by all means, play whatever you want to play. If you find yourself enjoying it, more power to you. I know Ubisoft games have this weird thing about them where they are, let's put it this way. If the latest Ubisoft game that came out is your first Ubisoft game ever or in a long time, you're gonna have a great time. But if the latest Ubisoft game that just came out is the latest Ubisoft game that just came out, then you're just going to be bored out of your skull experiencing the same thing that you just spent 100 hours doing in the last Ubisoft game, and the other 100 hours in the last Ubisoft game before that, and so on and so forth. I fully understand that, and I also fully understand that sometimes you just want to play some garbage. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just want to play something in the background while you're watching something, or in this case, playing something in the foreground while you're listening to something in the background, like a podcast or a show. Problem with Echelon here is that he just had to go ahead and talk shit about people criticizing the game, and instead of giving concrete examples of what or who he's talking about, he's just blanketing it towards a massive group of people. And even though I know that it probably doesn't include me since I'm still a small channel, I do check out bigger channels' streams and videos every now and then, so I have a basic idea of what their feelings are on the game and the things that they're saying about it. Enough of an idea to know that what he is saying is hyperbolic nonsense befitting only an insignificant minority of
Okay, let's get to the point. Give us some examples. Upper Echelon didn't point people out. Who are you talking about?
people, while he insinuates as if it's the majority of us. And sadly, he also does other things, such as dismissing valid criticism as things that are supposedly invalid, according to him, for various reasons. So yeah, I had to talk about it, so let's get into it.
Also, I'm not going to assume this whole video is a April Fool's Day joke. I think that was the perp from earlier. And I don't think this clown knows what comedy is, given how he reacts to the Ackman's petty little jibes at the anti-woke haters of shit like this.
It's finally released, and believe it or not, I'm about to defend the game to a degree. Here's the format. I'm going to start by giving an example of valid.
Also, Dezembro here didn't ever point out which of the channels he was referring to. Maybe he'll do that in a bit.
This extremely vocal and seemingly growing subset of the gaming community, primarily the anti-woke content creator sphere and their followers, have completely lost the plot, as they now scream about things which hold zero merit, simply because they are incapable of self-reflection, intellectual honesty, or admitting that none of this ever had anything to do with real principles. This was about clicks. It was about ad revenue in particular, in much the same way that crowd has now gone totally silent on the subject of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which was a massive financial success and Game of the Year contender as well. They'll probably go silent about Shadows sometime soon, because it simply isn't the failure that they claim. And thus, the most important part of all of this, it can't.
This is where I disagree with Upper Echelon. I think there's going to be a segment, like there is with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, who'll still harp on about it.
Can't be used as a bludgeon against whatever target they pick next time.
So right off the get-go, he is taking this entire subsection of the gaming community and painting them as something that they are not. I'm sure it fits for some people. I have in the past in this channel brought up people like George Torch, John Delarose, and John F. Trent as extreme examples of people who do not represent what actual gamers are saying and concerned about in the industry. He paints this shit as if it's some sort of movement.
And how do you know that when you don't know who he's talking about? For the record, I think he should point out the people who he considers the bad actors. It'll stop dipshits like this guy here from automatically pushing these extremists under the bus. You know what? I don't even know if calling them extremists, but they're definitely pushing a wild ass interpretation out there.
He paints this shit as if it's some sort of movement here to make money by falsely making claims and then somehow using those claims to bring up against any new game in the future, as if it brings more validation into it or something. I don't really understand what he's talking about. All I know,
You don't understand what he's talking about in any new game in the future. What game in the future? Wait, you don't know what he's talking about. Maybe you shouldn't talk out of your ass.
it's not happening. And it's also not a machination by us. It's a naturally occurring situation. So, for example, Veilguard was the ideologically influenced garbage that it was. Let's just say it how it is. But nobody is using.
And here's the laundry list of things that aren't related to Assassin's Creed Shadow, aside from Ubisoft picking up on the Yasuke trend that was really popular at a particular time. Netflix had a show. He made his way into other games like Samurai Warriors and one of the Neo games. And what I'm guessing is an attempt to create some hype around their fucking series in decline. I go by Occam's razor, and that's the most simple explanation that actually coincides with the progressive push. So, is this whole video a joke or just this opening bit? I'm hoping it's the entire video, given how badly Dumbman's bro poisons the well here with the false comparison between Upper Echelon and Fighting Cowboy. I mean, you can disagree with both their perspectives on this matter, but anyone with any intellectual honesty or did the bare minimum amount of research about either guy would know Fighting Cowboy is more of a normie streamer divorced from the culture war, while Upper Echelon himself has been in the culture war long enough to even be mischaracterized by journalists.
It to criticize Shadows. Shadows is being criticized by its own merit, or in this case, lack thereof. There are simply natural lines that are drawn because there is an infestation problem in this industry, and so we see similar things across different games, such as, for example, the non-binary character in Shadows being injected into the game out of the same mindset that injected them into Veilguard. And of course, people are going to see these things and draw these associations because how could they?
Show us the non-binary character and do a comparison with the one in fucking Vanguard. Can you do that?
Come with me, Ibuki. Join my league.
Yes, Yasuke.
That's why we recruited her.
Actually, Tosh uses them for themselves now.
They asked us to let folks know, so now you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you for telling me. That's why we recruited them.
So what's our next move, Rook? Arlithin, right?
If you want to compare the two, give us a example. Frankly, the trans movement and all of that tries to claim people like that for their own. Ubisoft is probably letting them imagine it because I can't find anything about that. It might be out there, but this is lazy to make this comparison without showing your work. Because if Dummy's Bro can do this comparison with the one in Vanguard, I would actually agree with him here. Not that that has anything to do with Upper Echelon's point. This is what we call in rhetorical terms a whataboutism. Upper Echelon is talking about Assassin's Creed Shadows, and Dummy's Bro has to pivot to a completely different game.
Not. After all, we have presentations like these over at the Game Developers Convention, or conference, or whatever it's called, where people are actively chanting from the deepest depths of their souls that games must be political, in this sense, and with the...
That only highlights there are activists pushing for games to be political. I don't know what sort of headcanon he's working with here, but let's get back to the video. This is a response, or is it an April Fool's joke? Am I wasting my time responding to this? It doesn't matter in any case because this guy's a fool. Every day is April 1st for him, it seems like.
Whole presentations geared towards how to shove in non-binary characters and other crap like it into any kind of setting at all, even ones where they don't fit. Like, this is just what's going on in the industry, and people are obviously
generalizing You're not showing proof that it has any relationship with Shadows. And there's actually a good argument to make one here, but is he going to do it? I'll let you know if he doesn't by the end, because this is not about disproving anything about Shadows or that Upper Echelon's right. This blind response is just to see if this clown even can argue his own side's points well enough.
Going to draw parallels here and there. But the point is that whether Shadows is a failure or not does not mean anything for whatever happens tomorrow. This in itself is not a game. There is no scoreboard. Whether or not Shadows is proven to be some ideological sludge like Veilguard was, it doesn't mean shit for tomorrow. If Veilguard 2 released next month and it was just as bad as the first, Shadows doesn't really matter in that equation. Also, it brings
This sounds a lot like what I hear people saying about leftists or woke people. That they keep on saying that's not true. Even if it is, it's a good thing. It's not quite that, but the sort of conflation between Vanguard and Assassin's Creed Shadows is a faulty one.
Also, it brings up Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and the fact that people stopped talking about it as some kind of big major piece of evidence that we're running some kind of agenda here, and we just stopped talking about that one game and apparently making up lies about it, as you will claim later in the video, because it proved itself to be successful. But the only people who were coping about this game's success were those aforementioned 3 people that I brought up a minute ago, and the rest of the community was already moving.
This dipshit has his head in the hole. I guess he hasn't heard of Synthetic Man or Griffin Gaming. Much like Dumbsbro here did a response to Upper Echelon in regards to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And I'm sure there's others I don't know about, but he's already fucking wrong.
Moving on, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was never questioned as to its quality or success. It was questioned as to the actions of its director, painting it as a potential problem. And while after launch some people still chose to not play it because of them altering Henry from an established heterosexual character to a bisexual one with the possibility of romancing men in the game, people merely stopped talking about it because there was nothing else to be said. There is no agenda here. The agenda came by part of those aforementioned 3 people who then tried to spin that the game was failing.
So we have this a little bit over a month ago. Yes, Daniel Vavra decided to betray the fan base, implementing the current day slop.
200,000 players wasn't anything. Also, it had child sodomy, blah 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 blah, because of a codex entry talking about historical data unrelated to the game that described that the person that Hans Capon's character was based on was supposedly only 14 years old in 1404. The rest, people stopped talking about it because there was nothing to talk about. The game was good.
Oh, he brings up that other people stop talking about it.
Lord who will one day inherit Ratai and all of its castles and estates. And yes, a major plot point of the first game is that Hans is underage. That's why Sir Hanush, his uncle, was grooming him essentially to become a real lord later. So I've heard both grifters and Daniel Vavra himself saying that Hans' birth date was not truly known, even though it is literally a plot point in the first game that everyone forgot, that Hans is in fact underage. I just want...
Did Synthetic Man miss the question mark? That's besides the point. His whole point is moot, going off of the codex entry that the person Hans in the game was based off of. How many years of grooming and growing up did it take for Hans to be ready for the Lord position? Since the game was 1403, and given the young Lord did not take possession of Ratai until 1412, I would say that was 9 years of grooming Hans, the real life version, had to deal with before they dropped the young and Hans became a full Lord. And that was after getting some battle experience.
Nothing to talk about. The game was good, and now at this point, people, as players, have their choice to make. Buy and play it, or don't. Simple. KCD2 was a complicated situation that has nothing to do with Shadows or Veilguard or anything else like it, and even within this field.
And why are you conflating Shadows and Vanguard together, but not Kingdom Come Deliverance 2? Do you wish to explain it? Let's hope he does.
Here, these content creators who go against the grain, it caused division as people argued over whether or not changing Henry's sexuality was an ideologically influenced decision, and whether or not that even matters when 90% of the game was just plain and simple fun and immersive without any retarded ideological injections like unexplained non-binary or trans characters, or purposefully botched female character designs, or obviously historical misrepresentations based in contemporary political or ideological issues present in our current day. People will eventually stop talking about Shadows as well. It's not because it's a success, it's not, and we will get into this in a bit. It's because people move on.
Yeah, people are moving on. You moved on without proving any of the crap you just said. Brought up the non-binary character, but didn't really highlight how it had any connection to the cringe that was in Veilguard.
From everything. Like, what do you mean? People stopped talking about Veilguard as well. Does that mean that it was a success too? There's a kind of disingenuous demonization that you're going to see present very commonly throughout this video, where he sees
the disingenuousness is not coming from Upper Echelon here. Yes, if anyone is coming close to being disingenuous, it's definitely Dummios here with the boss equivalents that he hasn't proved anything about and was wrong about no one talking about it. We have Griffin Gaming responding to Upper Echelon a little over a month ago, and Synthetic Man talking about the same point he said no one's talking about in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Not saying he is being disingenuous on purpose, but his ignorance is
where he sees content creators that criticize these games and aren't afraid of.
And this is called poisoning the well. You don't call something disingenuous unless you can't fucking prove it. It's the most Weasley word that bitches use, at least in my personal opinion.
Touching on sensitive subjects in the worst light possible, where nothing that we do is the correct thing to do. If we make a mistake and admit it's a mistake, it's like, look at them. Like, they're liars, look. If there is no mistake and we keep explaining why it isn't a mistake and it is an issue, it's like,
please tell me who does it and how it relates to Upper Echelon at all. Are you trying to say a certain thing about him, implying something about him off of very little, but maybe the dipshit will actually prove something instead of just headcanon and talking out of his ass, priming whatever audiences he's pandering to here to view everything coming from Upper Echelon in a certain light himself. Again, this could all be an elaborate April Fool's joke. I am hoping it is, but he sounds a little bit too serious after that one burp, which fucking hell.
Look at them, they keep lying, look at them. And if we move on to a different topic, it's like, look at them, they stopped talking about that other thing because, they had to stop talking about it because they were lying about it. That's the only reason why they started talking about something else.
Again, Upper Echelon should really put in the details, but he's gotten shit talking directly about Grums the same way Boone, better known as the aristocratic utensil, he is a tool after all, has the same problem when saying anything negative about Grums, along with plenty of other anti-woke people within the sphere. I'm sure someone like Adomion that Upper Echelon brought up in his particular video there also falls into this. Outside of that, who knows? But this guy is just gonna assume, for what reason? I don't know yet. Probably some sort of tribal signaling.
You can just play as Nawi. This is the important part. If you took this game, literally just deleted Yasuke, just deleted him completely, I don't think there would be even a fraction of the hate that it's currently getting. But see, that's an issue, because why on earth, in a post-release environment where we now understand the distinctly different playstyles of these two characters, with the added impact of not really being required to play very much as whichever one you dislike, why are we still clinging to the fact that Yasuke sucks in order to say the game is a total failure? I agree wholeheartedly that Yasuke is garbage. He can barely climb walls, he doesn't even have eagle vision, navigating the world with him is a chore, and watching him run through solid wood castle doors is just a complete joke. It's somebody's power, fiction, fantasy type thing, and it's just decidedly stupid, okay? But guess what? Nobody has to play as him. As with pretty much everything else in this game, it is optional. Back when the game was still on the horizon, when we didn't know what it would eventually look like, criticizing it over the impending debacle of Yasuke feels kind of doable or defensible. However, now that we see what Ubisoft has actually made, why are people so angry over the existence of choices? This is an RPG. You can dislike Yasuke and then not play him. In fact, for anyone who is concerned over Yasuke subtracting from the traditional Assassin's Creed atmosphere, which he does, why is the outrage still there?
It's because it's in the game. What do you mean, why is the criticism of the thing in the game still coming up when it...
Because it's in the game. We demand Yasuke get taken out of the game. Fucking titled bitches. Maybe he has more than that. maybe he fucking has more. Let's hope so.
It's optional. It's still in the game, dude. What? Yasuke is flawed. You admit that he is flawed, but just because he's optional and you don't have to play as him, then what the? We can't talk about it. We have to just shut up about it. Like, what do you mean? This isn't a hero shooter where it's.
You don't have to buy the game. That's where your choice as a gamer comes into play, dude. This has to be an April Fool's joke. This has to be. You cannot be arguing that just because a certain demographic is outraged about it, it has to be taken out. That's fucking authoritarian and or childish as all hell.
It's like, guys, I hate playing as Mercy. This game sucks. Like, this isn't a hero shooter or whatever the fuck. This is a narrative game. It's a single player game with a story. Yasuke is part of the story. The writing behind him is retarded. Therefore, people are going to criticize it. How is this complicated? Also, we already knew that it was going to be optional. We already knew going into this that Yasuke was one of two playable protagonists. However, still the most important one, according to Ubisoft's own promotional material, over time, except in the past few weeks when it switched to prominently featuring Naue. Like, again,
did he miss the point post-release? Is he concerned about the fucking marketing? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. It feels like he missed half of what Upper Echelon's argument was here, or just talking past it.
and this stuff that Yasuke represented is still in the game. All the criticism that people had are still valid. Just because you can choose to spend most of your time playing as Naue, that doesn't mean that Yasuke is not in the game. Doesn't mean that his character and all the criticism that is associated with him just goes.
Yep, he just wants Yasuke out of the game. We don't want Yasuke. I mean, that can't be his fucking argument. Sorry. Again, this has to be an April Fool's joke.
Away. He is still something that is present in the game with all the terrible writing associated with him, and this is stuff that Upper Echelon himself, like I said, admits he's terrible.
Generally with April Fool's jokes, they're not an hour long, so yeah, you got me, man. You got me trolled with this video. I'm responding to it. Awesome. Maybe I should have picked a better video to respond to, but his Ackman videos seem to be just taking shit post on Twitter from the Ackman and spinning it into a 40-minute video. I could be wrong.
Sucks to play as, which I actually don't even agree with, and he sucks narratively. He is out of place, he is presented as a Mary Sue, he is bestowed all kinds of accolades without earning them. Why would we be unable to criticize all of this just because we can optionally switch to Naue as soon as the game allows?
You're assuming Upper Echelon has those same criticisms or even believe that that's the case. Definitely agrees with a lot of the issues with Yasuke as a character, but again, this is rather craptastic.
Us to do so after a specific story mission or a specific part of the story involving cutscenes, etc., that are about Yasuke. This would only work if, for example, I was reviewing the game and I said that this game is like a 10, but playing as Yasuke sucks, and so therefore I'm going to give it a 6 because Yasuke is just that terrible. Playing as Yasuke is so bad that it's going to go from a 10 to a 6. Then you could argue that I'm being unfair because I can play most of this game as Naue by switching to her on the missions where I am not forced to play as Yasuke. Therefore, maybe removing 4 whole points is unfair. Maybe I should just remove 1 point.
Oh, I get it. This is the postmodern take. He's just making up. I don't even know what to call this. Upper Echelon said something about these anti-woke people moving the goalposts. This guy's just making a April Fool's level joke here.
But this is not what the criticism surrounding his character comes down to. This is not what's going on here. And the same goes for other issues that touch on culture and history and the disrespect towards it and the setting. But for that, let's listen to what Upper Echelon says about it first.
I find it exceedingly strange now, and
yes, this is what truly interests me about this. The disrespect.
I don't know when precisely the shift happened. Sometime recently, but I couldn't put my finger on when. But people now appear to be viscerally angry that a choice they don't like even exists in the first place. I can understand that outrage when the player is forced to do something, but when did we switch over from don't force me to play as something I don't want to, in a franchise where I have certain expectations, to don't you dare even create something I don't like, even if I never have to engage with it hardly at all? Why is that happening?
It depends on what that thing is and what is the motivation behind it. For example, using Cowboy and what he brought up, back in the day, we had optional gay romance options in Mass Effect.
What? Why go back to fighting Cowboy? I'm not going to watch that craptastic video. What does that have to do with Upper Echelon? Is this like the MCU? I have to literally watch every little fucking shit this guy puts out to understand what's going on within his narrative in his little fantasy world. He's attributing something fighting Cowboys said to Upper Echelon for some strange reason. Maybe they're secret clone lovers from a mirror universe. I don't.
Effect and Dragon Age, and many other games, by the way. And they weren't problems because they were just that. They were options in the game that aren't forcing anything on a player, nor being put there for a different reason. They're not part of an ideology trying to change things within the industry, not trying to...
Again, Packer Girl is being cited as a source for some particular reason. Why do this? Why not bring up the talking point that everyone else brought up about one of the consoles? Not Sweet Baby Inc. It was a different console, and I am not going to help you out by highlighting that here.
Anything. It was literally just, hey, here's this awesome RPG. You can play as a girl or a guy, choose wherever you want, and there's also like 6 or 8 different characters, some of them male, some of them female, that you can romance throughout the story. That's it. Nobody's trying to associate it with movements that exist right now, contemporary shit. Nobody's trying to do any of that. There's no fucking unhinged developers on Twitter going nuts, talking about their politics and how we're all chuds. There's no like 5 or 6 games.
Do any of these things have to do with fucking the game Upper Echelon is talking about? Oh, sorry. He's got to keep repeating the narrative and bring this up. It's actually
games in a row doing this one same
thing over and over. You'll be saying, like, for example, an ugly character here, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. There's no pattern that's being followed anywhere. There's no weird things being said by project leads about modernizing the franchise or bringing it to a modern audience or whatever the fuck. There's none of that. It's just, here's the game.
Do what you want.
Come on. Even Upper Echelon talked about Thomas Lockley. He did. This dude cut it out. But is he trying to be disingenuous there? I don't know. I'm just going to say he's being ignoramus, okay? Come on, give me the one person related to the game, besides Thomas Lockley, that's being used against this game for the modern message. Please.
If we look at Veilguard and the shit that they put in that game, for example, arguably, you could say that it's optional too. Just like Yasuke, like, we don't have to talk to Tosh. We don't have to have Tosh
a few moments later
progress her personal questline, and we stay away from her interactions in the lighthouse. We can significantly reduce the amount of cringe in the game. But this doesn't make it okay for that cringe to be in the game in the first place when it comes from the motivation and intention to ideologically influence the game's industry. Shit like that doesn't end up in the game because it makes sense, like the optional same-sex romances in previous BioWare games. Of course, aliens are going to fuck each other.
Shit like that is in the game because it's putting this same agenda that we've seen getting out of hand across the entertainment, coming all the way from comics, devastating the TV and film realm, especially when it comes to Disney and the shit that they've put out and ruined, and now it's infesting the games industry. And as you could see from that previous image from the Game Developer Conference or convention or whatever, this stuff is literally ingrained in the industry. We are getting activists instead of developers being placed into leading positions, and we are
enabling them and reinforcing.
Example, please, for Christ's sakes. It's annoying enough Upper Echelon isn't pointing out the actual people invest in the games industry. Again, if this was the first video I was watching from this dude, I would think he's a batshit Alex Jones conspiracy level insane. I know there's activists in the gaming industry. The way he's framing it, it's like everyone, it's invested. No, most people working in the game industry are left-leaning, creative types. I believe in biological reality, like male or female. You can't become literally a biological male by transitioning. There's also psychological factors that come into play, but that's something a little bit different. For the most part, it's liberals or left-leaning people who are the creatives who get into game development. This will be incredibly ironic given the stream that I'm planning to do before I post this video out there. And look at the title, Gatekeeping. Good luck with that, buddy.
Their beliefs whenever they shove their political and divisive and ideologically motivated shit into the games. Sorry if I sound very hectic today. I usually tackle these topics a lot more calmly and I bring more receipts and etc. But I'm really just trying to get this done as fast as I can.
Yeah, lazy ass bitch. I don't believe you. You're talking out of your ass. And having to pull a whole bunch of shit out that Upper Echelon would probably mostly agree with you on. But he would definitely say you're being very hyperbolic and over the top with how you're describing it. But I'm not going to speak for him, and I'm not going to speak for this dumbass here anymore, because that's not what I do. I try my best to understand the arguments of other people, why this guy gives other people what they're saying without even putting in the work and being a lazy ass bitch, which he just admitted to.
Because I would love to get done with not Veilguard, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and move on to something else. Like, I want to just review the game, show you guys the idiotic crap that I've been seeing in it, because this game is so bad. This game is actually so fucking bad, and it doesn't even have anything to do with Yasuke. Well, part of it does, because Yasuke is a Mary Sue, make no mistake about that, but there's so much wrong with this game that goes far beyond Yasuke, and it's just being used as a scapegoat. It's like, oh, people just hate it because of Yasuke. It's not. This game is just bad. It's not the worst that Ubisoft has ever made, but it's just bad, and it's unavoidable to see it when you...
I'm curious how many times he says the word bad. Bad, bad, bad. Illusionary truth effect. You keep repeating something enough, doesn't matter if it's true or not, people will start believing it. And this guy has already shown himself to be wrong. I'm hoping that's just his ignorance and not the fact that he's trying to be disingenuous.
Put it together with all the context. So I just want to get there and do that as fast as I can. Still though, I'm not going to leave you guys hanging on this topic because it is important.
Excuses. Throw in insert for plug for a review. I'll be curious how well a straight up review, just going over the game, will do with the type of content this guy has been shitting out for not even 7 months.
That's why I'm making the video to begin with. So let's continue. Even when we say that it's just optional, people don't want more Veilguards and Dustborns. People don't want more slop that we can't even criticize. Because when these games become tied to
then why are you making this video? Goddamn slop of the highest tier.
Ideological bullshit, it completely changes everything. We can no longer even criticize games normally anymore or praise them for
plug. Go down more my crazy rabbit hole. Everything's about politics. No one in the gaming industry. I'm not even going to go with this. This is just hurting my head.
For that matter, games media will never address any issues. They will instead go ahead and praise these games and pass along articles trying to claim them as total successes when they were actually complete failures, as we saw with Veilguard and are seeing now with Shadows, despite this guy saying the opposite, but we'll get to that part in a second too. This shit is...
When did he say the opposite?
When they were actually complete failures, as we saw with Veilguard and are seeing now with Shadows, despite this guy saying the opposite, but we'll get to that part in a second.
What he's saying is it's not a complete failure. He thinks there's a lot of problems with it, but it's not a fucking huge success in his mind. He's not arguing for that.
I see profit-motivated outrage with little to no self-reflection, where the only outcome is to bury the more legitimate problems under a deluge of manufactured garbage. It's not healthy. It doesn't help the industry, and it certainly doesn't end well if that type of shallow concern ends up being kind of the mainstream sticking points. Hopefully it changes. That's it. That's my effort to articulate why I'm actually not disappointed with Assassin's Creed Shadows as much as I thought I would be. Actually, I'm not really disappointed at all. I kind of like it. Despite some real severe problems, it does have issues. And this time, as opposed to my previous video on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I tried a lot harder to extend an olive branch and be more neutral. I think a lot of people outraged over this game, adamantly claiming it's a failure and condemning it 6 Ways to Sunday for reasons they simply heard from social media, are brain dead and they're beneath the rest of us. But you get more flies with honey, and I don't really need...
I agree, like this guy here. And I'm putting this part in Upper Echelon, saying it's not perfect, but it's not a failure. He has his personal preference, and it does seem like some of his points about the innovation of the game that backfired on them is true. But that's what a lot of bad faith critics do. They say something about what the person they're responding to, what they think about the product before the actual person gets to hear them for themselves. So we'll see if Dummy Bro will actually do that.
This shit is terrible for the industry because it makes games get judged based off of whether or not they're reinforcing the dominating agenda. Sorry, I meant the dominant agenda. A game like Black Myth Wukong gets demonized because it rejected Sweet Baby Inc.'s agenda, and a game like Veilguard gets glazed because it was so ideologically compromised that it didn't even need a company like Sweet Baby Inc. to come in and
I find that ironic given what I just went over. You got Upper Echelon, who's definitely fallen away from the anti-woke content, which he sort of got into rather heavily for a bit there. And you got newbies like this guy coming in and acting like he's the authority on the industry and wokeness, despite him clearly having a very limited view of the game's media, even online.
tropes and nonsensical plots. This is why recently there's been a rise of people fighting.
And what does that have to do with either Assassin's Creed Shadow or anything to do with what Upper Echelon is saying? Feel like I'm going to be repeating a couple things a couple times because he keeps on repeating stuff that has nothing to do with Upper Echelon's actual video and not even proving any of these things are actually in the game that supposedly he's playing and doing a review of, but too lazy to actually show the receipts this time.
Against some things that are merely optional, and sometimes, yes, it sucks, and it doesn't always land. Sometimes people make mistakes, sometimes people get things wrong, but it's up to us to be honest and draw those lines. One way or another, the state of things is just what it is. It's a natural reaction to the intrusion of that ideology in the first place, which was not brought onto the space by us. We were just happy.
And Upper Echelon was on the forefront while you were probably sucking at your mom all. Let me not go that far. I'm just baffled.
Happy playing video games, but now that they brought in contemporary divisive matters, politics, into the space, they have to deal with the consequences of the division. And sadly, there's going to be collateral damage because people are so high alert about this stuff now that sometimes they are immediately mistrusting a game because of a certain choice or thing in it.
In short, that comes off as there's going to be collateral damage. Some games are going to get mislabeled as woke, and people are going to be wrong, but totally not AC Shadows, even though I haven't proven anything about it being woke in any way. Except for the non-binary person, which he did nothing to prove, and I found nothing to prove. The person's literally non-binary. There's such things as dykes, and there's such things as twinks within gaydom. Maybe there's evidence out there. I did a quick search, and he didn't present any evidence of that at all in this video, but he was being lazy, or maybe this is a April 1st joke video. I'm still confused on that particular matter because he did acknowledge it in the beginning. I just don't know why someone would make a video this long about another YouTuber that was a complete joke. It just doesn't make sense to me.
That fits into a recognizable pattern. As I usually say in my videos, I try to do things correctly. I try to say, hey man, this is okay, or hey man, this is not okay. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to bother myself with this while the main issue is still plaguing the industry. We have to hold each other accountable. Yes, absolutely.
Accountability culture is cancel culture, bitch. Maybe if you weren't such a newbie to this scene, you would recognize that. And this is not intellectually honest at all. So all your talk of honesty and other people being disingenuous, I think that's more comes down to your perception of other people who have actually experienced. I wonder if this guy knows Upper Echelon was interviewed by one of these fucking little journalists years ago and was mischaracterized, misquoted by the article person as an angry gamer. I wonder if that would change his perspective at all. Probably not. He's trying to pad his language. It's okay. But Yasuke, why didn't they just take him out of the game? Again, that could have been a joke. I'm hoping it is.
It's neither of us who have control over the industry or of what is actually being put into the games.
Perhaps on the subject of historical accuracy based on prior statements for a small subset of the player base, it might still matter, but Assassin's Creed is intrinsically fictional. Time travel, aliens, I won't go down the road of animus lore here, but historical accuracy in any real sense of the word is kind of a non-starter. People seem very concerned about how Yasuke can romance certain other characters or how there's a non-binary interaction of some kind, and I would agree with people if any of that was ever forced on the player. But Ubisoft put in an entire separate mode of the game called Canon Mode. You can select an experience that removes those choices entirely from the main menu before you even start the overall experience, which leaves me baffled.
That sounds beautiful. Given gamer choices is always a plus with me. I don't know what people outside the 3 people he thinks are the only ones who went against Kingdom Come Deliverance who would be against it. Does this sort of cowardly wish-washy thing still, so I don't know. Not as explicit as someone like Griffin Gaming in Synthetic Man and some of Synthetic Man's little orbiters that are quite interesting to a counter.
Because people are still genuinely outraged over the existence of characters and choices that they never even have to basically see. Feel free to chime in down below in the comment section if you want to, but how does that really make sense?
I'm not going to go into this again. I already did it in 2 separate videos. You guys can check them out if you want.
Okay, he's passing the buck to other videos. This has to be a joke. Yeah, I'm not watching your other crappy videos. Maybe I just picked a bad video to respond to.
Want to go into more detail? He talks about historical accuracy and how these games aren't that way. Duh, no shit. And he talks about how canon mode makes the choices of romancing the non-binary character and Oichi disappear. We already went over whether something being optional doesn't matter if that thing is purposely put there to push forward an agenda, or in the case of Oichi, if it's disrespectful. Canon mode...
And you didn't prove that at all. Putting the cart before the horse, dude. I really want to hear the disrespectful angle, because that's something I know a little about. Actually, scratch little more than I want to know about. But I actually do research and actually believe in percent improve. Even in something like this, I threw in a little bit of this. Sure, I didn't show any evidence to counter his sort of claim with all those random articles, but they had nothing to do with Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's just the whole industry is like this. And I can agree, it has a little bit of that edge. There's just such an easy go-to for this argument here. I just find it funny that he didn't actually fucking use it.
Also doesn't make the non-binary fella go away, now does it? It just takes away your ability to bang him. But they're still a modern, contemporary symbol of identity politics in feudal Japan. So I'm just saying that canon mode doesn't really matter.
Again, the non-binary thing is something you could easily prove with actually something from Ubisoft or something actually in the game. I went through a certain section of Yasuke with that particular character to see if they had a Vanguard moment where they brought up the they, them pronouns. Japanese is a very gendered language, but they do have gender neutral terminology and also honorifics to sort of signify status.
Matter here when it comes to that stuff. The stuff is still in the game. Most people aren't even going to touch canon mode because they don't want to play a game that is basically an RPG with choices and etc. without actually...
This is almost the reverse. It's like, it doesn't matter, but if it does, it's bad. No, the argument for modern day politics is how it's implemented. If it's implemented correctly for the historical setting, like using the terminology, someone who in modern day would identify as non-binary accurately back then. And I don't even know if that's the case for this game, but he's not actually proven it to be. So if he wants to make the claim, he's going to actually have to prove it's true. Basically, if he wants to judge this as guilty of being complete modern day idealistic slop, which almost all games have that with the AB body type instead of male or female, he's going to have to prove it. The burden of proof is on him, and he hasn't done that yet.
Actually having the power to make those choices. And when it comes to Assassin's Creed and their playfulness with historical accuracy, basically, in short, it comes down to this. Assassin's Creed used to play with history in order to create something fun and interesting for the players without crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed, where it would be disrespectful or sending some kind of message. So automatically, right off the get-go, if you're taking some other country's setting, history and culture, and you're injecting into it modern-day Western Californian bullshit, such as gender theory and...
This is the last time I'm going to really address this in this particular edit, but that little bit of evidence that he could actually throw in sort of support that they did try to do this accurately. And it's even more out there than I really want to get into here.
Identity politics, that is already in its own an issue that you're probably going to have to contend with. Like, that's already something that if you as a company want to remain safe from offending any governments or anything like that, you shouldn't do it. Period. Other people's history and culture is.
Why should video game companies be scared of governments, offending governments? I mean, yeah, from sales perspective, it makes sense. From a business perspective, artificially created outrage about it, as there definitely is with Assassin's Creed Shadows. If you want to deny that argument, I just think you got your head in the sand and ideologically possess yourself. I look at both sides, both arguments, and see who has more facts on their side. So far, it's sort of mixed, but I don't lump everyone into a big group because I'm not a collectivist. I'm an individualist. So I'm judging this guy individually, separate from his peers, and individually, this is some crap ass bullshit so far.
Playground to put in your politics for your own selfish reasons. But that on its own is just an aside. As a more personal example, we can talk about Assassin's Creed Rogue, where Ubisoft turned a huge earthquake in Portuguese history, one that leveled an entire city and killed thousands, into a parkour playground and plot device. And it still went on to cause no issues here at all because they did it respectfully and it played well in the story. Having that be the thing that completely changes the protagonist.
How did they do respectfully, and how's this comparable to anything in fucking Shadows? He just makes so many claims, but he doesn't make any arguments to back up those particular claims. You have to already agree with his worldview for any of this shit to make sense.
In his life by being him that caused it in the first place, switching sides to the Templar faction, swearing to stop the assassins from ever destroying another city by messing with artifacts that they don't know anything about. In opposition, banging Oichi, Oda Nobunaga's sister, is just fucking stupid and unnecessary, and of course goes without saying, disrespectful. And a quick Google search will show you precisely why. She was fiercely loyal to her husband and family and chose to die with her husband instead of anything else. What is the change that they do here in this game? They make her cuck.
They give the player an fictional historical piece that definitely plays with history choices. Are they choices I even agree with? Not really, but Ubisoft wants to hit the biggest possible demographic. Frankly, I think the LGBTQ thinking this is a win is probably overestimating their power in the industry. They'll throw them a little bone here and there, but shit, this isn't even that great a one. A game that actually gives them a huge fucking boner is Vanguard, and that's verifiably provable. Seriously, transition scars, I can't deny it, but I'm never going to play it because of it, because it is a choice. Really fucking in-your-face bullshit. I mean, I'm iffy on the they-them pronouns of certain games like Hogwarts Legacy and Starfield, but I'm fine with a gender neutral. Ultimately, I'm for tolerance, and I'm fine with a gender neutral pronoun because it exists in other languages to a different degree. But I was also a fan of old school Saturday Night Live, and It's Pat was a whole bit that would definitely be too offensive for people now.
Her husband, dead, by the way, for no reason. Like, what does the player gain from it? Nothing. What does the culture gain from it? Nothing. Gameplay. Do you get anything out of the gameplay? Was anything interesting at all? No, nothing. It's just this stupid fucking decision that they didn't need to make. They could have created any other character, like they created a non-binary fella, and just gave that character the romance path with Yasuke. Why the fuck do they have to go for a prominent...
Is there any straight choices at all in the game? I hear there is. I didn't buy the game because it's Ubisoft. Historically, their game design doesn't interest me. Their practices fucking are mostly deplorable for the most part, and the wokeness they eject, why I can accept it, it's definitely something I'll fucking roll my eyes.
Upper Echelon also brings up the Pope in Assassin's Creed 2, which relates to this, but it's a bit further ahead in the video, so just sit tight for a moment and remember it for when it comes up.
For anyone who's not aware of this, I used to criticize games often for shoehorned diversity and political narratives like 7 or 8 years ago, And now watching this new age of anti-woke content creator basically parrot watered down or much less articulated talking points well and truly after the tide seems to have shifted feels kind of weird.
The tide seems to what? What the fuck is he talking about? So let me...
You're a fucking idiot. You are a fucking idiot. Wokeness is going away. ESG, we had fucking Larry Fink go to Trump and be like, yeah, this DEI crap, we're not going to do it anymore. Is his head in the sand? Who does he think's pushing these politics? Is he not up with the ESG talk? Is he that far removed from the general conversation about DEI, wokeness, and forced diversity that he doesn't realize a metaphor?
8 years ago, he used to make content complaining about shoehorn diversity or other political issues in games back then, when it was far less problematic than it is now, when it was so not overt that it was practically non-existent. And now...
Is he high? This was when this shit was being pushed in media. He's talking about the shift. You can just look at one of his videos from back then. Is it that hard? Are you that fucking lazy? You were talking about he doesn't give examples. You're on his channel, I'm assuming. Myth of the male gaze gaming movement. Gaming Me Too permanently changed. Last of Us 2 permanently shatters critics' review impressions. Definitely one of the most divisive woke game out there. I mean, this is so easy to go and check his back catalog of videos. Cancel culture, a social plague, with Zoe Quinn there. Modern toxic masculinity is a myth. Extra credits. Don't know if this is. All suddenly, you're playing as a Nazi. You didn't choose to. I think this is what he's talking about. Game reviews are now just propaganda. Game reviews have become political propaganda part 2. Yeah, I think Upper Echelon is misremembering, but he's definitely SJW culture ruining gaming. This is pretty much the old version of wokeness. And he wasn't talking about in video games, but a little bit in there. If what is he talking about is the culture around it. Sexism in Battlefield 5. Can we just chill out? But that's enough of a side. Let's see if he fucking tries to see what Upper Echelon is talking about here.
When it's at its worst, he doesn't do that anymore? I actually missed this the first time I listened to the video and took notes. Like later in this video, this guy's gonna be talking mad shit about how people are only doing this for profit. They're all fake ass people. He refuses to use the word grifter, but that's the word that he wants to fucking say. And now this moron is genuinely trying to pass along the narrative that this stuff that we see now is nothing compared to what he talked about like 6 or 7 years ago. What? This is objectively and provably wrong.
Yes, he wasn't very clear with it, but he was talking about the culture that led us to where we are now and was amplified by Me Too and Black Lives Matter. But frankly, I'm in agreement on the decline. We're still going to have a couple more woke DEI invested games. Maybe they'll get canceled, maybe not. And hopefully we'll see a shift away from that and I can start supporting Western games again. But I don't have high hopes for that. Atlas and FromSoft all the way, baby.
No, it's way too early in this video to say this because we haven't gotten up to that point of the video yet, but keep this in mind for later because...
Yep, so much framing ahead of it is a rather dishonest, bad faith rhetorical strategy, which I'm not even saying he's purposely doing. People sort of pick up these sort of argument styles from other people. This is very familiar of a rhetorical style that I've seen other people implement it, not even really in the political sphere of things. Because I would like to do a count of how many times he brings up something that'll come up later in the video. At least 3 times so far, to the best of my recollection.
This just goes to show how fake this guy is. He literally just exposed himself for being the actual one chasing profits. Because back then, when the problem was much less pronounced, when the industry wasn't caked with activists and consultation companies like Sweet Baby Inc. and others.
Does he not fucking know about Zoe Quinn, Anita Sarkeesian? Is this guy so much in the fucking... This guy's being a revisionist. He's thinking Sweet Baby Ink. Whoa, this is like the dumbest fucking bad faith reading with zero research to sort of see what he's talking about. But lazy YouTubers for you do absolutely no fucking research. And after the fact, they don't care. They just don't care. They cope and cry about it. Their hot takes, their misrepresentations, which this is a big one. But obviously, Upper Echelon was asking for it because he didn't use the precise language that he needed to use to be understood by this autist here. This also might be an autistic thing. I'm seeing a lot more people coming onto the scene with this sort of autistic bad faith reading that take things at face value and doesn't realize metaphors like the tide crap here.
And shoehorn diversity to the fucking point where we're blackwashing characters such as Angraboda and God of War Ragnarok and getting full-fledged cringe simulators like Veilguard. Back then, he was talking about these issues. But now, where these issues actually exist and are much more pronounced, he doesn't. Gee, I fucking wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that it became optically bad to—
How long does... You know, instead of doing research, he's just going to do an ass pull. Some sort of assumption. Because, you know, this is what his audience that he's pandering to probably wants to hear. Or what he legitimately thinks himself. Sure, Anita, Zoe Quinn, Gamergate never happened, dude. Fez 2, completely, wasn't a big issue. I blame parents for letting children become this dumb and talking like they're know-it-alls. This is such fucking gaslighting. Okay, here's the video. How hard is this to do? Click on the channel. Let's look at Veilguard. Do I even need to click on that video? Dragon Age Veilguard. Oh, he didn't harp on it relentlessly. Dragon Age Veilguard is a limp, lackluster, and thoroughly disappointing entry in the Dragon Age franchise that makes me sad for what it could have been. BioWare obviously catered to I'm loving it.
Down and played a substantial portion of Dragon Age Veilguard. Thought it was time to weigh in, give my thoughts, my opinions, and explain why this is very much not a good game, for an abundance of reasons well and truly beyond the political discourse, and I am quite frankly baffled completely by the level of praise that I've been seeing when the impressions I have personally are overwhelmingly negative. First things first, because I think it's important to clarify this right off the bat here, the game isn't bad because it's woke. That's a Trojan horse line of criticism, in my view. You can do it, but it kind of torpedoes the efficacy of much more important issues, of which there are many. It's not bad because of a certain quest line that makes you trans. It's not bad because of the cringe dialogue section about how your companion is non-binary. It's not bad because they decided to put pronouns in the character creator or have top scars and vitiligo as creation options. It's bad because it's actually bad design, and it's a complete betrayal of the Dragon Age franchise for anyone who used to be fans of the world building, atmosphere, and raw gameplay. However, just to put all of my cards on the table before really kicking it off, all of those things are extremely obnoxious. It feels like this game was made by and for Twitter activists, unironically. And while that seems to be a very heavily focused on aspect for the game's most vocal critics, what I care about is raw gameplay. It's a video game, not a movie or a book, and the primary determining factor behind what is or is not a good video game, at least to me, in my view, is how fun it is to play, not how annoyed I get with the perceived politics.
Oh, you heard him. That's not the problem. He has a different opinion than you. He didn't talk about it at all. How hard would it be just to do that? These lazy, idiotic fucking little newbies to this fucking scene. I mean, I should appreciate the sort of bad faith criticism. It's just epic levels of bad faith reading when it's so easy just to see what he thought about fucking Vanguard, but they can't even fucking do that. Oh, this has to be a joke. This has to be a joke. Why make a joke video? Is his channel a joke? Maybe his channel's a joke entirely. I've seen a couple of his videos. I can't take them fucking seriously. I'm trying to here. I really am.
And more recently, the topic of shrines came into question itself after a clip went viral on social media of Yasuke destroying one of them in-game.
Now he talks about cultural issues and hones in on the shrine situation and how that caused a problem even with the Japanese government, etc. And how it doesn't matter because it's optional.
Yes, it's a player choice. You choose the buttons you push. No response to that, just skipping it for some fucking reason. What do you got after this?
Immediately following the backlash over all of this, Ubisoft announced a day one patch that would make certain portions of the game world non-destroyable. Certain NPCs and specific sections of buildings will no longer be part of the overall destructible environment.
I'm sorry, but Ubisoft did no such thing.
Did this dumb ass missed when Upper Echelon said
Ubisoft announced a day one patch that would make certain portions of the game world non-destroyable.
Yeah, it's like he's not even listened to Upper Echelon here.
This debacle was months ago, and the game still released with destructible shrines anyway.
Day one patch?
Previews. If they cared at all about this issue, they would have fixed it and the game would have come out without the problem.
I'm not understanding. Is he saying that is a mistake? Cultural sensitivity? Is this dude just a SJW? That's what I'm starting to think. SJWs are just coming into the anti-woke sphere. Sort of like how a rather laughable leftist used to be Pig Puncher when he was an alt-righter. But then he did this whole article about the alt-right pipeline, how that radicalized him. And he became a raging lefty who's still streaming nowadays to laughable concerns in most part. Look up Xander Hall, total soy ass bitch. Occasionally doesn't have the worst takes, but his W's are rather limited, both in his career and his personal life. It's quite a fun sequence if you haven't known about that man. Since I lost a bit of what I recorded, probably due to my software not wanting to store this crap in its code, I'll start wrapping up here. I have everything I need to finish this video up. Given I did watch the whole video, the only part that I think is needed is this section towards the end, which I found interesting.
Entrenched in a position before something even comes out, because of culture war brain rot primarily, they just can't be objective when it finally does. Sure, there's monetary incentives in play as well, but that honestly feels like a choice. You can criticize a game for what you see in the pre-release format, certainly, but when it finally comes out and doesn't have some of the problems that you expected it to have, or when it gets delayed and genuinely fixes some of the impending issues, you are allowed to change your opinion. That is okay to do. Instead of manufacturing reasons, inauthentically, why the game is a failure, when it really truly objectively is not one.
This only applies if something you were criticizing the game for doesn't exist anymore. Like for example, going into this before launch thinking that it's going to be filled with Veilguard level cringe, and then it comes out and there's only one non-binary character and you keep complaining as if there's like fucking 15 of them. But you look at what people are saying about this game, and besides laughing at that shit, because again it is funny, people's criticism have not been unfair. At least not the creators that I've been watching streams of the damn game in, or videos of, which are the main ones in this space. You know, the types that he is referring to in his video. Except of course he is conflating them with those other ones that I mentioned before that are more extreme and don't represent us. The problem is Upper Echelon doesn't know what he's talking about.
I still have to wonder if he's using this April 1st release date in case someone calls him out on this stupidity and or bullshit here. Well, besides someone like myself who he can ignore and probably will. Ironically, he uses baseless, bad faith assumptions that he accuses Upper Echelon of in this end section. But everything I brought up earlier actually proves Dummians Bro doesn't know what he is talking about. And instead of just making the claim about someone, that is the case he's doing with Upper Echelon here, just by highlighting the times the dude made assertions that are never proven, misinterpretations of the information that a simple search could have corrected, and total misdirections that have nothing to do with the game Upper Echelon is actually talking about. Almost seems like this guy is making a systemic argument against Assassin's Creed Shadows, along with some outright lies that could be excused by calling them jokes or ignorant, just like his video is, which is an ignorant joke. But with that said, I'm done.